I couldn't believe I'd done it. Again. Staring down at my hands, the reality of the situation sinking in. I killed another innocent person in cold blood. Grinning, I turned to the stoic guard who stood with an AK-47 in hand. A man who had seen and committed more death than most, and who didn't break the moment with communication. Exhaling, clearing my throat, and stepping over the corpse while he lay on the concrete floor. His throat slashed open with multiple wounds, and his legs still twitched. His meat clinging to life. His jeans were too big and hung idly from his hips, having been shoved on him to be part of this fatal performance. Placing the bloodied knife on the metal tray, joining the other instruments, discarding it once it had served its purpose. Walking to the sink, washing the blood off my hands, and while it was exciting, I needed more. I craved more. Staring into my reflection in the mirror, wondering if there were any changes and leaning on the sink. Other than the blood on my cheeks, chin, and lips, my pupils wide with excitement, and that borderline goofy grin on my face. There was nothing different. Licking my lips, I washed my face and dried myself off with a surprisingly pristine towel. Opening the door and stepping outside into the hallway of the temporary warehouse. The long line of doors had individual scenes set up to the specific taste of the clientele. This was number 7. It'll be scrubbed and forgotten once another was found. This was the second one I had been to. Leaving the scene behind me, and I saw Mr. Hawthorne standing with a clipboard in hand. His thin lips were coupled with a clean-shaven jaw. His facial features were unremarkable, nor were they memorable. A brown ponytail was tied back, with not a single strand out of place, and sunglasses concealed his eyes. I'd never seen them. Hawthorne wore a fitted black business suit, and didn't flinch when a loud, blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the hallway. He served as the face of the company. The only one.
I take it you're satisfied with your experience.
I am, thank you. At first, he intimidated me. Now he was a casual acquaintance. One I could never truly trust.
That is your 7th kill now.
He smiled politely, without warmth.
I have a new program to offer you. It is normally reserved for our elite clientele. However, I've deemed your interest worthy.
I have to admit, I was intrigued.
How would you like to go on a safari?
I stifled an amused laugh. Oh, I'm not really interested in killing animals. He let out a dismissive laugh at my expense. He tilted his head to one side and ended with a pretentious sigh.
Oh no, my dear. It'll be humans you'll be hunting, and you can make a choice about the location. A blood-soaked war zone, a spooky ghost town, downtown and dangerous gangland areas, and finally, a glorious gladiatorial match with a large payout should you win.
All the options sounded exciting. I didn't want to go to a war zone. Too dangerous. Too risky. I wasn't a wannabe gangster, and nor did I favor my chances in a gladiatorial match that left only one. So what happens at the ghost town? Hawthorne turned on his heel, clicked his fingers to beckon I follow, and after glaring at the back of his head, clenched my fist and released it, and after a moment, I followed along behind him.
Either there will be 50 locals there, or we'll fly people in.
He dismissed with a casual wave of his hand.
There'll be plenty of sport to be had.
I never bothered to discover the source of their human livestock.
If you want to be there by yourself, it is $5 million.
I must have given him a strange expression, because he put up his hand to silence me.
However, if you go with a small group, the price is reduced considerably. Each person is guaranteed at least 1 kill, the average being 7.
How much?
150K. Expensive still, but if you agree to be masked and the content sold on the dark web, we can bring it down to 50K.
I didn't want to be exposed. My identity would apparently be concealed. Still, I wasn't convinced. It was a considerable drop in price, and nothing in this world came for free. I don't want any material used against me getting out. There's a reason why I pay you as much as I do. I answered skeptically. Mr. Hawthorne seemed prepared for my reply.
Assurances will be made. The company has few rules. However, they are always followed.
He knew I still needed convincing.
If you do this, you will gain access to our premium membership.
The infamous premium membership. No one ever discussed or offered it. You had to be invited in order to receive it. The best kills, all for free.
I expect an answer back this evening.
Hawthorne turned on his heel and left. I went to the bathroom to think it over, before being driven back home to my family. Seeing the familiar side of my home, a place where I gave my greatest performance. With its single story with a manicured lawn and 2 cars in the driveway. Buster, the family dog, a German shepherd, barked and jumped when he saw me, wagging his tail. I took out my keys only to have it open, my kids yelling, "Mom!" and wrapping their arms around me.
Hey, you're back early.
David beamed happily. My husband rushed over and greeted me with a mutual kiss and a deep, loving hug. I learned to accept it over time. The warmth, the affection, the life I showed people, the good wife, the loving mother, and the beneficial member of society. It was easier to pretend after I killed, to be what I was expected to be. Later that night, using the burner phone I kept hidden inside a hollowed-out romantasy book, I had been given to contact them with a cover story should the police ever find it. We spoke in code, never using or knowing each other's real-life names, although they certainly knew mine. Happy Sun in the Far Beyond and in the Shade, which translated to, I'm in, Ghost Town, Anonymous. The number sent back.
Playtime.
I was in, holding my phone, rereading it repeatedly while my thoughts raced concerning the new adventure. I heard David's footsteps walking to the doorway, sliding the phone under the covers when I felt the mattress compress and soon his body was spooning me, resisting the urge to pull away. I felt the weight of his arm around my waist. I gave a well-versed, regretful smile and nodded sadly.
Another work trip?
David sighed, but accepted with his body flopped in defeat. I could feel his beard rest on my bare shoulder. The weight made me cringe.
We miss you.
I know. Don't worry. I'll get that promotion, and I'll have more time for the family again. I knew that was unlikely. My hand brushed affectionately on his cheek. I wouldn't enjoy it if the change occurred. My long hours and distance made me think that he'd perhaps find another woman. Thus far, he'd proven to be loyal. After a moment of intimacy, we lay together, and I thought of the dying man's face, beaming with joy, I noticed David staring at me a little too long, frowning, and it was unlike him.
Okay, just promise me you'll be around for the holidays. You've missed too many Christmases already, and I want family time with no interruptions.
I kissed and held him to silence him, with my head nestled into his shoulder. David relaxed in my arms while I stroked the back of his head, feeling his heart beat against mine. I wondered whether I could exchange a real shift at work, all to avoid the Christmas cheer. Within days, I received my tickets in the mail. Dropping me off at the airport for work was a common occurrence for him, to a point where he no longer questioned it, and I walked to stand with a forgettable person holding a sign. We then took a smaller chartered plane, where I met the 4 others that I will be sharing this experience with. One was a surgeon, another a politician, the next was a social activist, and the last was a school teacher. The first was older, with a faint aroma of antiseptic and soap, used right before and after surgery. A man who held people's lives in the balance. The second, I recognized his face from the papers despite the disguise, and given his support for inhumane policies, I wasn't surprised. The third was active on social media, shaming people repeatedly, and their profile picture had a smug look of moral superiority. The last had the look of someone who had taken too much crap during their life, and was at their limit. None of us spoke inside the small plane, each of us quietly observing the other, and none of us had access to window seats, as we were all flanked by the guards. Once we landed and disembarked the plane, stretching our stiff legs, when I noticed we were at a small, deserted airstrip in the mountains somewhere. Mr. Hawthorne stood with the guards and the tents had been set up for us. Through the gaps I could see beds, a chest of drawers, a bar fridge, and other amenities.
Welcome, dear guests. You will find all your needs have been provided for.
Hawthorne smirked, then clasped his hands, still wearing that damn smug smirk of his.
We will go over the rules. No firing on fellow guests or members of staff. Results will not be positive. Follow all commands given to you by the staff. No real names or any references to identity. And remember, some of these residents are packing heat and will return fire. Keep that in mind. Medical care will be granted. However, little accidents are known to occur.
I heard their whispers of excitement at the thought. Real danger this time. In the other facilities, it was sanitized, safe, while here there was an element of danger. I could only imagine how much risk there was going to a war zone. We were dismissed back to our tents for the rest of the evening. Sitting on my bed, I sent messages to my family, telling them I was in a meeting late. The delay, in my opinion, was the organization's spyware to ensure I wasn't spilling secrets. We were never allowed a moment alone. Once done, I soon fell asleep. When the sun peeked over the horizon, we helped ourselves to the continental breakfast. Waiting at the tent, we were given the choice of 3 weapons to use. I chose a Bowie knife, a 10mm pistol, and an AK-47. I wanted a sniper rifle, the distance, the precision. However, I wanted something up close and personal. The others chose a range of weapons, ranging from fantasy or extreme ones, to those you would expect to see in a movie, all the way to realistic ones. After a surprisingly brief lesson in how to use them, we set off, and I wondered whether our mishaps would be part of the entertainment. The teacher held a Desert Eagle in her shaky hands, struggling to hold it, and aimed it at a poster, shooting it several times. And after giving her a side-eye, I was determined to stay away from her.
They're going to get it. They're going to get it.
There was that insane murmuring under her breath. None of us were around the other too much, still studying and yet not engaging. Driven under the cover of dawn, looking outside. The people looked like they were hippies or part of some cult. People who shunned technology in preference for a simple life, away from the burden of modern man. It only left them vulnerable. We were herded inside a large tent together, forced to interact, with enough room for a table and chairs, a water dispenser in the corner with paper cups, and a coffee machine. The first real interaction we had.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Brady.
The surgeon addressed me with a presumed alias rather than his real name. He shook my hand with a dry, soft hand that spent many hours washing with harsh chemicals. His teeth were perfect, and his polished appearance gave the impression that was what he cared for most. First impressions were vital with a man like him. I thought he was a cocky prick. Pleasure to meet you, I'm Zara. I answered with a warm smile. His eyes were cold, lifeless, a shark's. I knew that steady gaze. A predator's. Each of us knew to never use our real names. I'd never give this asshole any information about me.
I've wanted to be in this program for a while. Couldn't get time off work.
I knew he was prying. Casual tidbits hinted at through conversation. Same. You know how it is.
It was lovely meeting you, Zara. I hope to see you out there.
Brady made his way over to an unimpressed Hawthorne. The politician stood back with his cigarette hanging from 2 fingers. He regarded me casually, equally assessing me. I was sure the policies he promoted were based on the morality that held God up to the highest ideal. I couldn't tell if he was being honest or a hypocrite in regards to his plastic persona. He looked different from his usual propaganda imagery, with the caring family man smiling and holding children in his arms. An inclination of his head was all that was needed. The message was, "Don't fuck with me." The social activist grinned.
I can't wait to torture someone. Just watch while they...
Her eyes were bright with enthusiasm. I remembered her. She was distinctly anti-violence, anti-gun, and always preaching to her audience about the importance of valuing human life, frequently advocating for better conditions for homeless people, and seemed to be unaware that a majority of the stock came from this population. People who were easy to dispose of without others looking for them or trying to discover what had happened here. Obviously, she didn't care, or she wouldn't be here.
I can't wait. I'm going to be a serial killer when I'm out there. They're going to write stories about me.
She beamed smugly, pretending to stab the air with a knife, and didn't seem to realize that no one was participating in her self-talk. The politician inclined his head in a greeting. Since I couldn't see his expressions, I had an inclination he didn't take her seriously. The school teacher hung back, her mouse brown bob covering her face, her arms torn around her abdomen, muttering under her breath. I couldn't understand what she was saying. I wondered how she managed to afford this on a teacher's salary, given they were paid peanuts. Mr. Hawthorne walked inside the tent in his pristine business suit, a clipboard in his hands, and a metal plug phone at his ear to communicate with the mysterious headquarters, silently nodding his head, seemingly in understanding with his fingertips resting on top, listening to what was being said. Withdrawing his hand and addressing us, we never knew who exactly he spoke to.
I hope you're all ready for your adventure. Please step inside the Jeep and make yourselves comfortable.
A professional smile on his lips.
We will be at the destination shortly.
Finding my seat, sitting beside the polished politician and one of the silent security guards.
Best hope this will be better than last year.
I gave him a questioning look.
We went to a cold compound on the Mojave. Only 10 people were there. All old hippies. Not worth it.
He rolled his eyes irritably and lowered his tan-colored Stetson to cover his face, followed by a gentle snore while he dozed off. The windows were dark. I couldn't tell where we were, and with how our bodies rocked, I figured we were traveling somewhere with uneven roads. With the windows open just a slit, I could smell the rich mountain air and figured we were in the middle of nowhere. More so than before. The previous village still had relative connection to the outside world. We traveled by jeep to an isolated community in relative silence. First, one of the security guards exited, nodded and gave a hand signal, and held the door open for Hawthorne, who exited first. One by one, we made our way out of the jeep. On the hill I could see cabins around a central hall, the smoke of a campfire. I think it was possibly a school camp originally. There were no symbols to indicate what group they were, no crosses nor anything else. They could have been an extended family choosing to live off-grid. Not that it concerned me. After being handed binoculars, I saw who the targets were. Some kind of hippie commune of people living off-grid. They were cooking breakfast together as a community, with a central campfire, some elders and a group of families. The children played together, and I figured that would deter none of us, even the parents among our group. They weren't our children.
Now,
Hawthorne addressed us.
you may go forth and enjoy yourselves. I recommend keeping your gun vests on for safety precautions. Stay behind the line, and we will keep you safe. Step over it and...
With an arrogant, carefree shrug of his shoulders.
It'll be an authentic experience.
Each of us were handed black helmets with a number from 1 to 4 on it. Mine was number 3. Staring at my reflection in the visor, there was no difference in my eyes. No indication that a new stage of my life had just begun. I saw the camera lens with a red dot indicating it was on, likely the whole time, and someone was watching. Suspiciously, I put the helmet on, then pulled down the visor.
Helmets on. We will not be held responsible if you or anyone else reveals your identity.
We all complied, all except for the politician, who preferred that Stetson of his. I waited with the others. All of us hesitated to take the first shot. The politician aimed his sniper rifle at the bearded man in the center, the prime target. The innocent man was laughing with his extended family. We could hear faint singing in the background, and I felt an emptiness where a pang of guilt should have been. The moment broke when the gunshot boomed throughout the valley, causing a burst of blood spurting on those closest to the leader and cracking the skull of the elder. His bearded face now in pieces. It made all of us jump.
A nice, clean kill.
The politician licked his lips in gory anticipation. The symphony of screams seemed endless, more grating than terrifying.
It seems they are alert to our presence.
All we could do was watch at a distance, squinting while the activist cackled, whilst holding binoculars for a better view. We saw the prey run frantically for safety. Some stopped to assist elders and children back inside the cabins. I couldn't help but laugh at their expense, while other members of their community came out with their own weapons, kitchen knives and a hunting rifle, ready to defend themselves.
Why are they preparing for an attack?
And their weapons were weak in comparison to ours. They're just for hunting. Fucking idiots.
Next kill.
He took aim at the remains with a long whistle, then moved with marksman precision, aiming his next shot and fired. Reloading with casual assurance. He had done this many times previously. His next target, a rifle aimed at an elderly woman, the same who clutched the elder and shot her in the stomach, whose body also fell limp to the ground. A great gaping hole inside her torso, severing it from her legs. The round rang out through the valley with faint screams in the distance.
You'd all best get down there.
A smirk of amusement.
Otherwise, I'll be the one getting my money's worth.
The surgeon, teacher, activist, and I all walked down the dirt pathway. All but the surgeon flinched at the sound of a secondary gunshot whizzing past our heads. Covering the sides of my helmet, I'd heard muffled gunshots previously, yet it was different hearing them up close. I imagined people using this path to get water from the nearby stream, peacefully going about their day. Since we were in the free zone, it meant we could be killed with impunity by our targets. More shots broke out, sending the wounded to the ground, and the surgeon and I exchanged a glance, followed by a nod. A shared camaraderie as we walked toward the village, weapons ready to strike. We came close to the boundary line. They had wooden palisades as defenses, and trenches to slow us down, with only an open gateway. Why would a hippie commune have these things? A pair of men who had attempted to close the gate had died for their efforts, their corpses surrounded by pools of blood. Tipping over their boxes of supplies and shooting their water holders, sending streams bursting from it. Did we have to? No. All I knew was the politician was getting his money's worth. I was surprised when I heard the activist approach behind me, shooting an elderly man with a hunting rifle in the calf that caused him to fall down with a heavy thump. I don't think she was aiming for his calf and had missed the shot. She cackled wildly, running forward to stick her fingers inside the wounds, twisting and turning them.
Why are you doing this?
He screeched loudly, holding the wound to stop the bleeding. It wasn't working. The activist put the hunting rifle down, having failed to reload it, then knelt beside him, taking out a large hunting knife and started stabbing him in the shoulders. I couldn't tell whether it was due to incompetence or a lack of knowledge about how to kill cleanly. Wrinkling my nose, deciding to move on, I kicked the door of one of the cabins. The latch barely clung on to the edge, taking a secondary kick to knock it off. A mother in a sundress covered in a dressing gown used her body as a shield, blocking my path in order to protect her 2 children. A kitchen knife in her shaky hands while she glared pure hatred at me. I shot her several times in the stomach. Blood seeped out of her while she groaned in pain, clutching her injuries, moving around the cabin idly. A dumb animal in shock. I kept watching to ensure the viewers had the best performance. A young girl and a boy with natural clothing hid behind the bunk beds, praying softly. They all looked healthy. They screamed, and I hooked my AK over my shoulder, wanting to conserve the bullets, taking out my pistol, aiming it at the little girl's chest. She stared at me, bravely, with hazel, defiant eyes, almost daring me to pull the trigger. I knew there were eyes watching the performance. The camera attached to my helmet occasionally buzzed. Hawthorne and the other associates, along with the viewers on the dark web. Allegedly. Thus far, I had only killed adults, never children. First time for everything. I fired twice into her chest, then twice into her brother's. Their bodies fell down limp, a quick death compared to the horror occurring outside. Looking through the window, the locals had been herded into the open atrium, shaking and bleeding, still wearing their pajamas. Some had urine and excrement stains down their pants from fear, while others had blood, indicating what happened to them. I noticed some had managed to hide, slipping out through the gaps in the fence into the shrub in order to escape. A series of beeps got my attention. Taking my weapons and opened the door and stepped out. The beeping stopped. The surgeon and the teacher stood in the center, both coated in blood, with their weapons aimed at the frightened townspeople, keeping them back if they tried to escape.
That one! I want to take that one first!
The teacher shrieked, her face flushed crimson red when a blonde boy was pulled from the crowd, suddenly shoved towards her.
He looks just like Jake from my class. That little shit mouthed off at me one too many times. Die, you little shit!
The screech followed by choking, gargling sounds when I realized she had pulled the teenager's tongue out with a pair of pliers. The limp, pink organ flopped inside the pincers while he covered his blood-soaked mouth, rolling around on the ground while his campmates attempted to comfort him. Shrieking with laughter, she held up her prize, waving it in the air. It was all a bit too extra for me. When the preferred survivors were chosen at random, they were herded together in the center of the town. And those not chosen were lined up, killed by a firing squad, their bodies simply left for the circling flies. They laughed while tying them together, and I joined them in doing so. Ignoring the pleas had become second nature. How could they be so weak to not fight back? I noticed small caches of items placed around the town that looked out of place. Black military crates, no doubt planted by the organization to grant us further entertainment if our imagination didn't suffice. They were tied up by their ankles, with their wrists above their heads to keep them from fleeing. Hang them up. We can get a better look that way, I suggested, not bothering to assist them, watching while they did so. They were pulled up one by one. Finally, living bodies had their limbs hanging down, their faces numb, murmuring and stumbling over their words, begging for mercy. I couldn't tell if it was from fear or if they'd been intoxicated by some chemical. The surgeon held a pair of pliers while the social activist held the struggling woman by her elbows, trying to hold her steady while the teacher held the prisoner's mouth open. I didn't bother to try to help. I simply watched. With a scream, their victim had her teeth pulled out one by one. Each prize dropped on the dirt. It was nearly exactly the same as we would do in the facility. Mementos of the occasion were removed from the bodies. A belt of nipples here, and a phallus shoved into a pocket for later. I saw the surgeon holding a scalpel on his knees with a teenage girl. Her back had been damaged somehow, rendering her unable to move from the waist down. Her knees bent at unnatural angles, and her eyes darted, mouth opening in a feeble protest while he sliced into her face, pulling up a thin layer of skin.
I've always wanted to try this technique. It's illegal over here. It can leave a victim almost...
Hey, have you seen any ears? I want to make a belt of them.
She cut him off while holding a half-full string filled with many different-sized ears. all to add to her human flesh collection. Ugh, no, I'm exhaling with disgust and frustration, throwing my hands in the air and leaving them to their entertainment. With a deep groan, I left the outdoor atrium and walked back on the same dirt pathway through the forest back to the campsite, flanked by 4 black jeeps with a campfire in the middle and armed guards around the perimeter. Our base of operations. I wanted to hunt, to struggle, to feel them fight back and know they could kill me if they were skilled enough. The danger. To see them waiting for me felt like a missed opportunity. With a sulk, I walked past the politician who sat immune to the carnage. He was busy sharpening a knife when a teenage girl fled to him from the woods. Her dressing gown torn and hanging from her, leaves clinging to her hair and clothing. He put up his hand to stop the guards from shooting her, stroking her hair tenderly. She clung to him while he glanced at her face, immune, and kicked her back toward me. I didn't want her to return to them. I stabbed her in the chest and slit her throat, leaving her body twitching on the ground at my feet. In the distance, the teacher was shrieking, and the pair of us looked in the direction, then at each other, and mutually rolled our eyes.
That one is crazy.
The politician gestured with his thumb back at her, leaning close to my shoulder with a lit cigarette hanging from his mouth, the smoke blowing in my face that I waved away, the visor from his helmet up to reveal his face.
No skill, no ambition, just wild rage.
He spat on the ground in contempt. I stared at him with a raised brow to inquire what he meant.
She'll talk when we're out. Watch. She'll have an accent, and the problem will be cleared right up.
Even his basic tone was different from the usual one used on the campaign trail. Quiet, soft, nearly delicate, while here it was cold, slow. The polite mask no longer necessary. I didn't doubt him. After the tea and coffee break, it all felt so boring. So normal, so damn mundane. To step from the chaos and then to this? Now resupplied and refreshed, we set out to hunt the survivors. Most were easy to pick off inside the scrub, without time to gather supplies or wear proper clothing. With night vision on our helmets, casting a green and grey light that allowed us to see. I don't know how the survivors managed to traverse through the heavy foliage. I followed the politician and the surgeon while they walked.
Looks like 4 of them are headed this way.
He knelt down, checking the broken branches, crushed leaves and footprints left in the soil, signs a majority of us missed. He then pointed to the right.
Some ran that way.
The politician removed his helmet, risking his anonymous status, and there was no way he'll be willing to allow them to live.
What are they?
Leaning over, checking the size of the footprints and shrugged, with another lit cigarette from his mouth.
Kids. 4 or 5.
The social activist let out a squeal of glee, raised her rifle in the air, and let out a series of shots, telling them of our location, and then followed the footsteps. The footprints were erratic. The children had clearly panicked while they ran away from us. She disappeared into the forest, concealed by foliage, and none of us knew where she had gone. Suddenly a loud shriek echoed from the direction she had run, and we looked over. No one bothered to go after her. The social activist stumbled out of the forest while cradling her arm, with a mud stain down her shirt and trousers, loudly running back to us, nearly accidentally slamming into trees and breaking branches in the process, while clutching her arm, and if looks could kill, we would all be dead. We never discovered the eventual fate of those children who had managed to flee.
Who gave you more trouble, the youngest or the sickly one?
He cackled.
Fuck you.
She hissed and stomped back through the forest, muttering threats under her breath. I didn't bother to tell her that she was going the wrong way back to camp. Actually, none of us did. The surgeon and politician had each taken their fill of killing and shared a cigarette between themselves. I couldn't hear their conversation. A guard handed me a canister of warm coffee, just the way I like it, and I sipped it, feeling the warmth through my veins. Thus far, only the three of us had made our way back, and were left waiting. I smirked while imagining the activists walking aimlessly through the forest. The teacher must have gotten lost. It was getting dark when I was gazing through my binoculars, while the social activist cried out while clutching her arm. At least, what was left of it.
Help me. I said help me.
She demanded, flustered but pale from blood loss. The guard didn't take a step toward her until she managed to step past the line. Two approached and guarded her back to the camp, sitting her down on a wooden log, and I wondered how many survivors were left from the camp. She pointed to the stab wounds at her shoulder and upper arm while giving Hawthorne a nasty look.
Oh, dearie me. A kerfuffle? Not to worry. The medic will be along to assist you soon.
Hawthorne's hand touched her shoulder in fake sincerity, wrinkling his nose and wiping the blood smear away with agitation, all while the social activist made her way over to the medic. The teacher didn't return. No trace and no explanation as to why. The sky darkened, allowing nocturnal birds to fill the skies, and there was the cracking of the campfire while we waited.
I didn't see the teacher come back. Do you know what happened to her?
Best mind your business, son.
He spat on the ground while leaning on the trunk of a shapely tree, while the surgeon's nose wrinkled.
Who knows why she's no longer with us?
The last time I saw her, she was back at the camp. She seemed okay.
For some reason, I couldn't shake a suspicious feeling about his concern for her welfare. Given none of us were around at the time, there was always a chance he was the one who killed her. If he hadn't been here, I would have suspected he was responsible.
Now.
Hawthorne exhaled, gently dabbing the blood from his forehead with a stark, white handkerchief.
It is time for the second phase of the trip.
Sitting slumped at the campfire with my head bowed and my body hunched over, none of us bothered to remove the blood from our clothing. So I settled in to listen, hoping there'd be new targets for us to hunt down, or we'd be shown to our rooms or tents or something. Now with us all seated on the logs, the still standing Hawthorne's steady gaze moved to each of us, studying us, 2 fingers resting on his earphones, nodding slowly, and finally revealing to us.
There is only room for one survivor to make it back with us.
The politician wasted no time. He took out his sidearm and fired it right into the surgeon's chest, who fell back with his hand clutching the wound, the blood leaking out through his fingers.
Help me! You have to!
The activist panicked and screamed for the guards to help her, a solitary arm outstretched for a weapon to be placed in it. They kept their guns close to their chests, stoic and without blinking. The time gap gave me the moment I needed to strike. I took my Glock, aimed and fired it several times into her chest. Nearly the entire clip exited to fill her bloody torso. Her body jerked and her lifeless body flopped immobile in the dirt. I had to admit, killing her was the highlight of the entire tour. I unfortunately, had the politician on the opposite side deal with the surgeon, who also lay bleeding from a knife wound to the throat. We aimed our weapons at each other, me with my near-empty Glock, and he with his loaded revolver. My hand shook, aiming at his chest, and I knew a far superior shot aimed at mine.
It was nice knowing you.
The politician's voice was quieter. He shrugged. With a reflective look I took as remorse, I fired into his neck, sending a burst of blood into the air, while he feebly covered it with his hand, trying to keep the liquid life inside. Instantly his body stiffened, sharply jerking to the right and firing into Hawthorne's chest. He choked in surprise, clutching the bleeding wound, and fell back onto the ground.
You...
I knew I made a mistake the moment I fired. I froze, waiting for a bullet to claim my life, and raised my hands in surrender. The captain, or at least someone with authority, reached into the side pocket of his jacket and pulled out an envelope and handed it to me, while another seized the empty Glock from my hands, keeping it out of my reach. "What's this?" He pointed at me to read it, and I opened it. I read the message in gold print.
Congratulations. You've been selected for Stage 3. Welcome to the company.
I could not refuse. In the media, a charitable event that ended in chaos was reported, resulting in the deaths of a prominent politician, respected surgeon, and a beloved activist, with no mention concerning Hawthorne or the teacher. An investigation was allegedly underway. Now standing in front of a group of 7 people, gathered around a circular table in the middle of a rustic cabin with beer bottles on the table. The charred roast of human remains on a silver platter, with the bloody, empty plates in front of them. They were tired and well satisfied with being able to hunt and consume their meal. And that was how I received a promotion in the company. I adjusted my clipboard and pen, wearing my brand new black suit, adjusting the cufflinks with a rearing serpent embossed on the surface. And have you heard about our latest package? It is quite the show. Thank you all for sticking through this horrific tale. I'd love to thank my amazing cast of voices who agreed to join me on this story. Below you can find links to their channels, listing them in order of appearance: Dusklight Radio, who played Hawthorne; We Try Horror, who played David; Vidith22 for playing the politician; Spirit Voices, who played the school teacher; Derek Weber, who played the surgeon; and 242, who played the social activist. Not to mention some additional roles by Weekly Creeps. Again, I'd like to thank them for joining me on this project. Please check them out if you haven't already. Derek, at the time this was recorded, is still demonetized, so definitely check him out to give your support. If you would like to support the channel and my work, consider becoming one of my channel members or Patreon supporters. Both get access to exclusive perks. Look at them! Look at all these amazing people! Thank you! In the description below is all my socials and links to my merch. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.